So I write in the book that there's a chapter in my life where I was a documentary filmmaker. And of course, there was a time where I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, but I wasn't yet a documentary filmmaker. And then I was learning how to do it, but didn't have a film and didn't know what resources I needed and how to do anything. And over those years, I wanted to be in ever more exclusive inner rings of documentary filmmakers in New York. I wanted to be with people who had certain funders, people who were accepted to certain film festivals, people who got certain distribution deals, people who were invited to certain workshops. And uh, to me, when I got invited to certain events, to these certain inner rings, be they a particular film festival group or perhaps a funder's offsite or something, it was a signal to me that I was maturing in my commitment to grow as a documentary filmmaker. Whether that was true or not is a whole nother question. But like I wanted the sense that I belong with these really successful filmmakers and that they thought I should be in the room. And so even though there are a lot of filmmakers, America, there's an inner ring of documentary filmmakers, there's another inner ring of documentary filmmakers who are funded by a certain collection of well-known funders. There's another inner ring of people who make PBS films. There's another inner ring of people who make PBS films that get invited to a certain number of elite film festivals. There's another inner ring of people who get to those film festivals and win awards and travel around the world with those films, and you get the idea. So there's a conversation whether that was healthy or not, but we can acknowledge that this is a phenomenon. So it may be if we have a very large community of martial artists or volunteers or podcasters, we may want to think, well, what are the inner rings that are almost naturally there that we want to acknowledge that we can offer to our members to help them understand, yes, you are in fact maturing in this thing that's bringing us together.
Now, when we talked about the boundary principle, we pointed out that it was really important to have a clear boundary so that people knew whether they were in the community or not. Is that also true with the inner rings?
I think it can be helpful. So if we talk about, for example, this hypothetical of Charles joining a bicycling community, either I'm invited to bicycle these century rides in the Rockies or I'm not, right? And it would be unhelpful if there's a bunch of members who don't know, can I be invited? Will I be invited? How do you get invited? Just so that when these events are offered, there's a sense of, well, who do we know belongs, or what is the path to get in? And one of the things I write about is we need elders to provide a path for people who are rightly skilled and have the right values to progress up. So if I don't even know how one gets into the bicycling events in the Rockies, then that can be very frustrating to me. So it's helpful if it's clear who's in and out so that there's just clarity of what's possible yet or how it can be possible. But with this said, there can be communities where it's a little bit fuzzy about who's yet mature, and then that can be clarified when there's a need for that.
And in a lot of communities, knowledge gets passed down from that inner ring, the innermost ring down to the other rings. Can you talk a little bit about the different ways that knowledge can be passed down one ring to another?
Yeah, well, one of the great joys of being part of a community with esoteric knowledge is getting access to that knowledge that's not known outside the community. For example, as a documentary filmmaker, I understood ways of planning international shoots that just never come up in casual conversation over dinner. I had to talk about intellectual property use that vast majority of Americans never even discuss. But I would get access to that by hanging out with, spending time with more senior filmmakers. So one of the things that we need to look at when we're offering inner rings and they're a journey of maturation and an opportunity for elders to help others mature is to recognize, well, when are we putting people together so that esoteric knowledge can be shared? The most fun way to get it is literally by just sitting down and talking about these things, which is how we share a lot of information as documentary filmmakers. And then you can also think about how you document that in manuals or guidelines so that there's some formal way for people to get this information than by accident. For example, in our hypothetical bicycle group, if I want to someday go on long rides in the Rockies, there are things I need to know about safety. There are things I need to know about equipment. There are things I need to know about communication practices to keep everyone safe. If I only get that by chance, if someone mentions it to me, if they think I need to know it, then that's pretty lousy. So if there's an inner ring of people who do Rocky Mountain bicycle rides, think about, do we have guidelines? Do we have a manual to at least get someone warmed up, knowing that it's not going to be everything they need to know? We also need to provide those members access to elders to help share that information.
So if I'm a community manager or community leader, should I be thinking about how knowledge is passed down, and should I be thinking about it both in terms of creating, maybe some strict protocols for something, like you said, the bike safety, but maybe just opportunities and spaces for it to also be passed down less formal.
Absolutely. I think because there is right now such an enthusiasm of doing things online, there's this expectation that online time is going to deliver information and create relationships that used to be created generation ago, literally over pizza. And my understanding is all the research shows online relationships, the online connections are a very, very, very weak substitute. They're not worth nothing, but they're worth far, far less. And so, one of the things we need to consider when we're actually bringing people together in ways to support one another and support growth is where and when are those times we can put people in small groups where they can have the experiences that knit people together as people have been knitting together for untold millennia.